afternoon, everyone. You are all about to witness an unforgettable display of intellectual ability and social diplomacy in action as our two amazing teams from New York University and Cheshire CI's T.R.U.E unit convene for a policy debate on the following topic. Resolved, the United States federal government should substantially de-emphasize current diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in its attempt to reform the criminal justice system. The NPDL team from Cheshire's T.R.U.E unit will argue in the affirmative, supporting this resolution, while NYU argues in the negative position, refuting the affirmative's case. Each debater will be judged upon the following criteria: analysis, reasoning, evidence, organization, refutation, and delivery. The five very distinguished judges of today's debate are Joe Schatz, the Chief Judge, Director of Debate at Binghamton University; Justin Green, National Champion Debate Coach at Wake Forest University; Brady Fletcher, Director of Debate at Rochester University; Judge Zia Faruqi, a U.S. District Court Judge in D.C., and Professor James Foreman Jr. at Yale Law School, a university legal scholar. Coaching our two debate teams are Sam Nelson, Director of Speech and Debate at Cornell University, and Jody Anderson Jr., Director of Technological Innovation at Cornell University, ILR School. They've taught the T.R.U.E unit team. And Will Baker, Director of Debate at NYU. Okay. As today's moderator, I will introduce our debaters individually, and they will all adhere to their specified time limits. Any introductory remarks will not be taken from their time. A digital timer will be displayed on screen, and speakers' microphones will be muted if they exceed their time limits. At the conclusion of the debate, our judges will tally up each team's cumulative point totals to determine the winner of today's contest. With all of this being said, it's now time to expand our minds and start this debate. Presenting the affirmative team's first constructive argument for 7 to 9 minutes, Damian Thomas. Damian's interested in philanthropy, arts, and sports.
Good evening, honorable judges and esteemed opponents. My name is Damian Thomas. Today, I and my colleagues have humbly come before this assembly to affirm the resolution. The United States federal government should substantially de-emphasize the current diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, otherwise known as DEI, in its attempts to reform the criminal justice system. We assert that DEI, because of its politicization and profiteering practices, has erringly overlooked evidence contradicting not only its stances, but the efficacy of its approaches concerning 1, recidivism rates, 2, police brutality, and 3, the school-to-prison pipeline. This reality reinforces our assertion that DEI mechanisms should be discontinued, dismantled, and replaced with effective and proven programs, some of which will be highlighted by our team. The debate transcends mere academic exercise. The aforementioned reality is now so supercharged that DEI is effectively a buzzword. It is so divisive that its mere mention causes rancor between contending parties, resentment and rifts running so deep. Not only is reconciliation almost impossible, but parties, some of which are our officials, become so vindictive that social goods become weaponized in bipartisan warfare. We'll unfold our cases through the following 3 contentions, each underscoring the critical need for substantial de-emphasizing current DEI to the ends of effective criminal justice reform. Our 3 main reasons for de-emphasizing the current DEI programs with the criminal justice systems are: 1, it ignores the root causes of racial inequities within the criminal justice system, such as school-to-prison pipeline. 2, vast racial disparities remain in incidents of police brutality. 3, recidivism rates in America reflect the failures of DEI in our correctional system. Proceed. Our first point is an argument that diversity, equity, and inclusion aren't essential to our criminal justice system. It highlights, however, the fact that the term DEI has become a Trojan horse, politicized and led for profit, paid for by the American people by focusing on intentions rather than measurable outcomes. DEI has highlighted problems for over 60 years, yet they continue to exist because without these problems, who will we pay to fix them? People stop listening when they hear the term DEI. After 60 plus years of this diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're still having the same conversations. or current policies to address the racial disparities do not do enough when it comes to recidivism. The United States leads the world in incarceration rates, having less than 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the global prison population. Unconscionable. 89% of those released from prison will come back within 9 years of release, according to a 2018 study by the Department of Justice. As the current DEI works, well, the FBI says that today African Americans make up 32% of the incarcerated, but they only make up 12.2% of the general population, according to 2018 census data. Black men are 6 times more likely to be locked up than whites in their lifetimes, according to the Census Project, while Latinos and 2.5 times more likely. Minorities also suffer high rates of police brutality on average. According to Mapping Police Violence, Black people are 2.9 times more likely to be killed by police than white people in the United States. Does that sound like progress? DEI, of course, is not the root cause of mass incarceration, but clearly hasn't helped. The correlation between high school discipline and the incarceration rate is clear. According to American Institute for Research, Black students are 3 to 4 times more likely than white students to be expelled or face multiple suspensions. The principal research consultant for the National Center of State Courts, Dr. Fred Cheeseman, wrote, most of the growth in incarceration rates are concentrated at the very bottom among young men with very few levels of education. In 1980, around 10% of the young African-American men who dropped out of high school were in prison or jail. By 2008, this incarceration rate had climbed to 37%, an astonishing level of institutionalization, given the average incarceration rate in the general population is 0.76 of 1%. According to organization Rehabilitation Enabled Dreams, the underlying problem with the school to prison pipeline is the use of court referrals as a means of disciplining kids. Court referrals are primary factors in kids becoming first-time offenders and inevitably repeat offenders, otherwise known as recidivists. DEI solution, according to volume 106, number 2 of briefs published by both judicial institutes at Duke Law, titled Helping Courts Address Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, is to make judges and administration DEI hires. Trust and confidence may improve when the court users see that judges and staff reflect the communities they serve. Result, segregation. White judges for whites, minority judges for minorities. DEI calls this progress. We call it regression. In a conversation with Brittany LaMarr, a board member of the Connecticut Justice Alliance, she states, the assumption that all people of color or of a different ethnicity retain the same experiences is racist and false. We agree. Let's try less police and DEI hires and more capable judges, counselors, and social workers, regardless of DEI qualifier. We proceed with our second contention, which emphasizes DEI complicity and absent-mindedness concerning police brutality. The significance of this is underscored by the fact that people are dying. In DOJ's own equity action plan, the way we see that, the way department law enforcement components engage with individuals who come into contact with criminal justice system, including limiting the use of chokehold and carotid restraints to deadly force situations only, requiring that no-knock warrants generally be used in situations where knocking and announcing presents a clear physical harm threat. Really, meet the menaces. Breonna Taylor, murdered in her bed, no-knock warrant. Eric Garner, murdered, permitted chokehold. George Floyd, murdered, recommended carotid restraint. DEI cover health departments justify bad behavior and murder. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, a criminal justice think tank, in 2019, police killed white people at a rate of 2.3 per million. For blacks, it was 5.8. These reforms created by the DOJ are really just window dressing, aka diversity theater, a term used to describe an attempt by employers to make others think that they care about DE&I issues. According to Jamie Edesai, the head of inclusion, diversity, equity, and allyship for a prominent New York company, as quoted in Matt Gonzalez's March 15, 2023 piece on why our DEI role is disappearing. Our opponents may feel these policies valuable tools, but evidence shows them to be valuable smokescreens for bad actors whose real interests are maintaining the status quo. Lastly, Our final contention brings to bear the fact that recidivism in America reflects the failures of DEI in our correctional system. This is of import because prison is truly a microcosm of America at large. To know DEI's lackluster performance surrounding the prison industrial complex is to know what danger abounds if we continue these DEI policies. To paraphrase Tyra O'Neill Hayes, former director of human welfare policies at the American Action Forum research article, incarceration and poverty in the United States, the U.S. spends nearly $300 billion annually to police communities and incarcerate 2.2 million. The societal cost, 3 times the direct cost. Total burden of our criminal justice system, 1.2 trillion. While my colleague Brittany LaMarr from the Board of Connecticut Justice Alliance calculates a hotel room for all these people at $100 per night, 2.2 million, plus free vocational training or education for each would equal the same amount and increase taxpayer revenue. Spending $80 billion merely for equitable and inclusive and to equitably and inclusively incarcerate people is not reform. Real reform is body camera policy in Chicago that has lowered police shootings by a half and use of force by 1/3, as opposed to DEI training at NYP that changed nothing yet cost us $5.5 million. According to a 2018 study by R.E. Warden, director of the John F. Flynn Institute for Public Safety, real reform recognizes when we paid our debt to society and enfranchises removing felons from our names when we paid our debt to society, thereby leveling the playing field for all. But the prison industrial complex are wealthy, paying customers, us not so much. To recapitulate,
We need your volume on. Can you start the microphone again, please? It's muted.
Okay, all right. Providing cross-examination for the negative team for 1 to 3 minutes, Elena Lee, a sophomore and international student from Guangzhou, China, studying economics and philosophy.
Just want to get visual confirmation if all judges can hear me. Great. I'm gonna start with my first question. Do the affirmatives defend that all DEI programs are bad?
yes. What we're saying is that while we don't support DEI programs, we support what they're supposed to provide, justice. And therefore, these things, if a thing invalidates itself by doing the opposite, then it is of no use to society.
Okay, got it. So you defend that all the existed DEI programs are bad for society.
Excuse me?
So you defend that all the existed DEI programs are bad for society.
Yes, it's currently constructed.
Okay, got it. So does the plan takes out all existed programs then?
Excuse me?
Does the plan take out all the existed DEI programs?
Yes, it does.
Okay. What do you think is the biggest cause of DEI failures?
Well, DEI failures actually money, because they become politicized. One word, money. The DEI initiatives are an $8 billion industry, projected to be by 2027 should be a $27 billion industry. And we find that this is a Newkirk study of 2019, and everybody wants in DEI. DEI has basically become all capitalism, and that's most companies.
So it's costly and it doesn't do the job.
Not at all.
Failure. Okay. Moving on to next questions. You said police brutality and mass incarceration are still happening under DEI. Do you think it's because because DEI caused it, or is it because we haven't do enough DEI to prevent that from happening?
Well, the two aren't mutually exclusive, and I believe it's both. Police and other corporations use them as a smokescreen. They come in and they basically pay them to provide cover. So we make these wonderful policies, And so when you're high behind, but you actually
So
aren't
if
actually
they're-
enacting policy.
Okay, got it. So if they're using it as a cover, do you think they do it correctly? Do you think this is under the right principle of DEI programs?
Yes, because I believe that the people who run and work in DEI understand this, and it's become so lucrative that they go in directly selling themselves as cover agents.
Okay, got it. Moving on to next questions. In the end of your speech, you mentioned that DEI doesn't change anything about recidivism rate. If the NIC proved that DEI actually decreased recidivism, do we win?
No.
So
Because it
even
doesn't-
if you decrease recidivism, we still don't win. That DEI programs can be good.
You're speaking on that in hypotheticals, and we're living in a real world example. We're talking about what DEI actually does.
So if we have real data that prove that it actually decreased the recidivism rate, we still can't win.
I'd have to see that data. I don't think it exists.
Okay, but you think this is a crucial point to just to decide if DEI programs works? Recidivism.
The point,
Yeah.
we're discussing it now, but the point has arrived for more than 50 years.
Thank you.
Right. Presenting the negative team's first constructive argument for 7 to 9 minutes, Sean Wang, a sophomore from Scarsdale, New York, studying applied psychology.
How does this work? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to start with some thank yous and then onto the speech. First, the NYU CETA team would like to express our gratitude for the chance to be included in this opportunity. We'd like to thank our esteemed opponents, the Cheshire students, the volunteer coaches from Cornell University, and who worked diligently with them in preparation, the Connecticut Department of Corrections, the 5 judges joining us virtually, the Cheshire Correctional Institution, and the staff and supporters of the National Prison Debate League. NYU is pleased to negate the resolution that the United States federal government should substantially de-emphasize current diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in its attempts to reform the criminal justice system. We begin with the negative's interpretation of the topic. Merriam-Webster defines de-emphasize as to reduce the importance or prominence given to. Substantially means major, not minor quantification change, which makes our interpretation better. Words and phrases 87. Substantially impairs value. Although term may not be susceptible to being precisely defined, it connotes more than mere minor, easily repairable defects in a good. Current DEI programs refers to programs that foster principles of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in their design and values. National Institute of Corrections in 23 finds that a work environment that adheres to the principles of DEIA is becoming the #1 challenge in private and public sectors, with current forecasts predicting teams will comprise members of different backgrounds. It will demand that employees have the opportunity to express these variables. Innovative strategies create a work environment that encourages staff to be their authentic selves. Leadership must embrace trains of thought that center around purposeful intertwining. Psychological safety and security in corrections is the blueprint to knowing they care for individuals in every aspect of a correction system. Done well, a DEIA program will be the heartbeat for a culture of respect, safety, productivity, and efficiency needed for all, and especially within the correctional system. The role of the ballot is for you to vote for the team that best demonstrates the functionality of DEI programs through opportunities, examples, and/or cost-benefit analysis. If NYU wins that DEIA programs done well should not be de-emphasized through opportunities, examples, or cost-benefit analysis, then you should cast your ballot for the negative team. Our first contention is opportunities for success. A, context matters. Awareness of cultural context is easiest when you share experiences, language, and common frames of reference. America's difficult history means that part of examination must include the makeup of those being served and those administering the service. Stories of disappointing trial outcomes and court decisions are often traced back to those relationships and representations. The simplest solution is to foster environments where people that share experiences, language, and common frames of reference in the past or present are part of the process. A demographic examination of U.S. lawyers nationally demonstrates an across-the-board failure in according to the ABA profile of the legal profession in 2020. The number of lawyers of color grew less than 3 points in 10 years. 86% were non-Hispanic whites, 5% are African American, 5% Hispanic, and 2% Asian. B, justice is never guaranteed. The essential questions the AF must answer is where do concepts of justice and equity stem from, and how do we develop their functionality in our current system? The law is not neutral. We all have our own biases passed down through a historical lens encoded by hierarchies. It will be impossible for a diverse nation to succeed unless we take steps to crack the code, acknowledging the shortfalls and embedding equity. Princeton University professor Ruha Benjamin explains in 2019, the rhetoric of betterment camouflages destructive processes through which racial, gendered, and colonial hierarchies are encoded as natural. A justice-oriented approach starts with questioning, remaining alert to difference, and prioritizing equity. C. DEI programs provide important opportunities in criminal defense, serving four main functions. 1. Making sure clients' legal rights won't be compromised. 2. Ensuring people with different identities will be represented equally. 3. Providing understanding to clients who face intersectional discrimination. And 4. Assisting in dismantling systemic bias. According to attorney Stephen Hernandez in the 2023 Necessity of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Criminal Defense Practice, criminal defense law thrives on DEI. They are pivotal for the delivery of justice in the criminal defense landscape. Enhanced defense strategies contributing to a robust and comprehensive approach. Clients feel more understood when their lawyers can empathize with their cultural context. Language barriers can impede a client's understanding of their rights, the charges against them, and the legal process. DEI helps to dismantle systemic biases and injustices within the legal system. Implementing DEI requires commitment, action, ongoing education, and training to raise awareness. D. Involvement translates to opportunity. A comprehensive study of U.S. prisons conducted by Doug Irving of the RAND Corporation proves conclusively that participation in any program is impactful. Those who participate in any kind of educational program behind bars, from remedial math to vocational auto shop to college-level courses, are up to 43% less likely to reoffend and return to prison. They also appear to be far more likely to find a job after their release and the social stability that comes with it. The cost-saving initiatives can have a generational impact on families, as explained in the Correctional Association of New York study. There are considerable government savings due to fewer recommitments, and the children of prisoners participating in in-prison college programs are encouraged to pursue education more seriously. Our second contention is that DEI program cuts are the worst option. A. Replacements are unlikely and time-consuming. The old proverb, a bird in the hand, is always true when it comes to government programs. In an election year, neither party wishes to be portrayed as soft on crime, which makes new criminal justice reforms a non-starter. Washington Post reporters noted in 2023 that Democrats' push to reform the criminal justice system made a lightning rod for attacks from Republicans and Fox News that crime was soaring. A growing movement within the Democratic Party, pushing a more aggressive line on crime and publicly breaking with reform policies, is prompting the shift. There is also a sense that Democrats lean too far left on public safety in recent years. Now, onto the key points of the affirmative. 1. Our opponents argue that DEI programs are ineffective in these settings. The data simply says otherwise. DOJ study proves unequivocally they're economically viable and increase self-sufficiency. The DOJ reports that these findings reinforce the need to become smarter on crime by expanding proven strategies and ensuring the chance to become productive citizens. We have an obligation to improve public safety while reducing costs. The largest ever analysis of correctional educational studies indicate that a $1 investment translates into reducing costs by $4 to $5. Programs provide individuals with the skills and knowledge essential to stay on their feet when they return to communities across this country. They also say that DEI programs are unfair, but that misunderstands their purpose and their intention. DEI programs originated to address verified workplace issues. The purpose is not to define anyone by a single characteristic or lower expectations, but to improve awareness and trust. Cuts in DEI services have had substantial deleterious impacts, as featured in February's Monday Insights report just last month. Layoffs disproportionately affect underrepresented groups, which significantly hindered business pledges to boost representation. Employees experience microaggressions and hostility and find themselves code switching, changing appearance, body language, or expressions to feel accepted at work. Research by the Harvard Business Review, Black employees believe not code switching would negatively affect their professional careers. This is tied to burnout, emotional distress, and reduced commitment to one's company. By helping your employees express the obstacles they face, you pave the way for a greater awareness and intentional behavior going forward. Some people might not actually want to talk about it, which is okay. Your goal should be to simply open the door. Show your team members that you trust their word and that they can count on you. Having a sense of community can make all the difference. They argued also that de-emphasizing is good in general. Dr. Wright concludes that that approach would be devastating. Research shows innovation and the potential for exponential growth that fulfills widespread needs are fostered by differences have been identified and included. This has been continually proven throughout world history. Examples are visible across every industry: renewable sources of energy, transportation, food products, medical treatments, medications, financial transactions, etc. Democracy is defined as government by the people. The best way to deal with polarization is to have people reflect on their beliefs and be inclusive. Poorly designed DEI programs are ineffective. Some fail to recognize the complexity of DEI and fail to use a multidisciplinary approach in designing and executing programs. This does not mean DEI should be thrown out. It means programs should be carefully designed. DEI, if implemented properly, can be effective. Now let's move on to some line by line analysis, just like talking about their case directly, right? Start off with an overview on all of their evidence. None of their evidence draws a direct link between DEI and rising rates of racism. They don't provide any of these like links. All they cite are just correlations. You shouldn't take into account any of this evidence. Also, our trade-off argument is super important here. They talk about using DEI funds to fund like other programs such as like, I don't know, better reform or whatever. However, we read you evidence saying that no politician wants to be seen soft on crime in this current political climate. No trade-off is going to happen, and politicians are just going to use these funds to probably be even harder on crime because that is what's trendy in politics right now. Also, they conceded in first crossfire their burden of proof. The app must prove that all DEI programs are bad. Think about that burden of proof. They must prove that every single DEI program is bad. That means if we come up here with one example of a DEI program that is good, we already win the round. It's super easy. You can just vote right off it. Thank you.
Right. Providing cross-examination for the affirmative team for 1 to 3 minutes, Ishkar Howard, founding T.R.U.E program mentor. With interest in poetry, he's a proud father and grandfather.
Is it the negative team's position that employing people of the same race as inmates will make the conditions of incarceration better?
All we defend are that the United States federal government should not substantially reduce DEI programs.
The same race and culture mean that personal experiences and worldviews are the same.
Like, do you mean if perspectives are the same, then worldviews are the same?
Well, what I mean is if you had another Asian person standing next to you, would they be the same person as you?
Not exactly the same, no.
Thank you. Does DEI need discrimination to stay relevant?
I think this is like missing the point of our argument. Also, like just a general observation that like discrimination is a giant issue, and it's kind of like I feel like you're probably going for this idea that like we can get rid of discrimination, and I think that's like a huge uphill battle that you're gonna have to prove.
So thanks for telling me where I'm going. So this agency of DEI is spending billions of dollars on a cause it doesn't believe in itself. So stopping discrimination is never going to happen.
No, I said it's a huge problem. It's an uphill battle.
Okay. All right, thank you. In DEI's quest to reform the criminal justice system, how is mass incarceration not at the forefront?
Can you like expand on this question? What do you think?
Expand on the question?
Yeah.
Well, mass incarceration is one of the biggest issues that we have in this country when it comes to people in prison, right? We're talking about criminal justice reform.
Oh, I understand. Yeah,
that is the topic we're debating, right?
Yeah. The argument that we're making is that like any statistic that you read about like racism or mass incarceration would probably be significantly worse without DEI programs.
Would be significantly worse without. Okay. So where do incarcerated people fit in? I heard a lot about politics. Where do incarcerated people fit into the plan of criminal justice reform? Or we just don't exist?
Like on a policy level, or are you asking me like about my case?
I'm asking you on a human level.
Okay. Yeah. The entire purpose of like criminal justice reform is to help incarcerated folks.
Well, I heard a lot about how politicians feel and how they don't want to be looked at as soft on crime. I mean, we tried that in the 80s. I just want to know, when are we going to start looking at incarcerated people as people?
Okay, so the hard on crime point is specifically about your arguments where you say that like defunding DEI can like move those funds somewhere else. We say that that's not a realistic outcome, but we say that DEI programs directly impact and help incarcerated folks. That's our RAND evidence, which tells you that like 43% of those involved with DEI programs, I think like there's a 43% increased chance that they don't re-enter back into the system.
So there are DEI programs that are helping incarcerated people.
Yes, those exist.
Thank you.
All right. Presenting the negative team's first rebuttal for 4 to 6 minutes, Hyatt Elsgol from San Francisco, California, studying political science.
Judges, can you all hear me? Okay, thank you. Judges, your role of the ballot is to vote for the team that best demonstrates the functionality of DEI programs through opportunities, examples, and/or cost-benefit analysis. That means we can win by proving vocational, educational, economic, religious, or technological programs work in the status quo as well or as successful initiatives can be modeled. Extend that substantially requires a major change, which is the affirmative's burden to win this debate. Budget tinkering is insufficient. Please move to our first contention, opportunities for success. Extend Sean's A, context matters. Awareness of cultural context is easiest when you share experiences, language, and common frames of reference. Sean's B point is especially critical. The affirmative fails to answer either of the key questions. Where do concepts of justice and equity stem from? And how do we develop their functionality in our current system? That's an additional reason to vote in the negative. Extend our C point that DEI serves 4 functions in criminal defense laws as follows. Ensuring clients' legal right will not be compromised. Ensuring people understand different identities will be represented equally. Providing an understanding to clients who face intersectional discrimination, and assisting in dismantling systemic biases. Now let's move to our second contention, is that DEI programs cuts are the worst option. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. We're winning that replacement programs are time-consuming and incredibly unlikely to pass in an election year. This creates a double bind for our opponents. They either lose because DEI programs are working now, as the negative argues, or they lose because the current situation isn't perfect, but there are real program needs and no new programs are on the horizon. That means the risk of DEI programs do some good leads to the negative ballot. Now, onto the affirmative's arguments. Please pause here for a moment to compare the authorities used in this round. The negative sources are largely from 2023 and 2024, including statistics from last month on the lasting legacy of deleterious impacts to cuts of DEI programs nationwide. Where our sources have been less recent, we've quoted the largest study ever conducted on these programs by the Department of Justice, a comprehensive national study by the RAND Corporation, reported on in the Harvard Business Review, and an expert analysis from a professor at Harvard about what is needed to crack the code and help us move towards a more justice-oriented society. That should carry weight in your decision calculus as well. Extend our first response. The Department of Justice study proves unequivocally that these programs are an economically viable option. The last section says that every dollar invested translates to a $4 to $5 savings. That's a 400 to 500% return, which certainly means DEI programs are worth the effort. Extend our second argument that they've misconstrued the intent of DEI programs. The purpose is not to define anyone by a single characteristic or lower the expectations of workplace productivity, but instead to improve awareness and trust between individuals, promoting and understanding. Finally, extend our third response that the de-emphasis would be bad. It came from the 2023 article by Dr. Phyllis Wright of the Forbes member council. Yes, DEI can be done wrong sometimes, but that is not a reason to abandon it. It is a reason to design it carefully and do it right. Examples throughout history across all fields of industry prove that we innovate, create exponential growth, and fulfill people's needs when differences are fostered. DEI programs are the essence of democratic inclusion, and we should foster them whenever possible. We encourage you to opt for the negative. Thank you.
Presenting the affirmative team's first rebuttal for 4 to 6 minutes, Kevin Pichardo. Kevin wants to give back to the community and those in need.
Good afternoon, esteemed judges and respected opponents. My name is Kevin Pichardo, and I will be bringing the first rebuttal for the affirmative team. In this first rebuttal, I will critically examine the arguments presented by the negative team and highlight their flaws in their reasoning and evidence as well. Firstly, the negative team asserts opportunity for success. Equitable hiring is not opportunity for success, assuming all people of color or of a different ethnicity retain the same experiences. Racist is false. Doesn't mean only because me and you the same color doesn't mean we know the same things or come from the same background. Number two is replacing is too time consuming and costly. Well, DI spends money all the time. How does it cost you? I have a study in 2018 where DI was ordered to pay $5.5 million due to NYPD study. So how is it time consuming and costly? We're talking about human lives, and DI wants to keep on going with. We need DI for what? For more diverse communities. What does that have to do with anything? DI being diverse is just a thing, a color. We're not gonna get anywhere if everybody has animosity towards people putting diverse staff or even diverse people in certain situations. If we have we have a study of that vocational study in Michigan that has nothing to do with DI and it works. To date, the vocational village boosts extraordinary 2% recidivism rate, said Chris Gantz, in Michigan Department of Correctional spokesman. So why do we need DI if this program is intact? Like one in Connecticut called the T.R.U.E program. The T.R.U.E program has accomplished at a fraction of the cost of what DI industry purports to be interested in doing. Our success rate is 83%, and it follows at a rate of recidivism of 17%. By contrast, the national rate is 89%. According to the DOJ 9-year average, we flip this trend upon its head. We are an extremely diverse community, and equality is achieved via equal access to services and paths to upward mobility. Inclusivity by promoting participation in democratic processes and opportunities spaces for sharing personal and cultural experience. DI has never been part of it. In 7 years, we have had 4 lieutenants, 4 consular supervisors, 2 captains, 4 wardens, 2 DOC commissioners, and 2 governors. Out of the 18 professionals that helped put together this program, all but 3 were white. All of this have occurred under their leadership. Furthermore, they have been some of our staunchest supporters. Which one of them would you have us replace with a DI hire? Again, if the objective is efficacy, this reinforces our motto of culture over color. This proves the idea and the fact that it is people of integrity and culture that causes real change, and not simply placing the DI hires which normally represent either a token or a scapegoat or a rubber stamp of a status quo. And before you start, I know what you're thinking. You're going to make a haphazard attempt at pointing out the uniqueness of the T.R.U.E program. However, it's only unique in the fact that it is the original national model for our sisters and brothers programs in 7 states. 7 programs in 6 states have adopted our model. And now I would like to focus our first rebuttal to our first contentions, which are DI ignores the root causes of racial inequities within the criminal justice system, such as the school to prison pipeline. If you can't start from the beginning, why start from the end? Why go and help when I'm already older? Number 2, vast racial disparities remain in incident police fatalities. That's why we have a resolution. Transparency is what we need. Chicago PD body cam policy, where video is released within 2 months of incident, created civilian oversight board to remove interest of Department of Investigation. And number 3, recidivism rates in America reflect the failures of DI and correctional system. Resolution, more vocational training and schooling, post-incarceration resources, as in halfway houses and subcontract mental health care, removing the interest of DOC. These are the things we allocate and fight for. We need these things. DI allocates their money and the resources into the wrong thing. And this is what the affirmative team is here to say. We need DI to focus on the real challenges, the real problems, the people. We need help. And DI is not trying to help. We want to duct tape and send money to the wrong places. Right there.
All right, we've now reached the halfway point of the debate. Leading us in the in opening the second round by presenting the negative team's second constructive argument for 6 to 8 minutes is Luigi, a senior at NYU studying political science. He enjoys the violin and soccer.
Just to confirm, can the judges hear me well? The most important consideration in this round is the potential of DI programs. Problems with past DI programs is not sufficient to renounce them as a whole. DI programs are uniquely beneficial for the framework shift it triggers within the criminal justice system, the way the values of these programs carry over into the post-incarcerated world, and the uniqueness behind the bureaucratic processes of such programs. You prefer the negatives framework over the affirmatives. The AFS framework expects a single solution to fix a history of racism and human bias. It's an unrealistic expectation from a program whose intent is to create an environment conducive in opening dialogues and creating the awareness and opportunities for historically marginalized. As such, you prefer the neg's interpretation, evaluating the potential of DEI. The role of the ballot of the app is therefore to prove DEI is an inherently bad paradigm, while the neg has to prove any sort of tangible benefit DEI can be attributed to. On our first contention, DEI programs are uniquely beneficial for the opportunities they both unlock while in prison and post-release. Inside prisons, DEI programs offer a base layer of communication and understanding between prisoners and the criminal justice system, creating the necessary frameworks for combating systemic discrimination and bias. Beyond, the educational value of DEI programs helps form convicts with the necessary skills for life. This is uniquely beneficial. These programs beneficially impact future generations of families, helping both their families and working towards reducing recidivism. You extend our ABA Profile of Legal Professions 2020 card under subpoint A, which tells you the best way to redress for America's difficult history is to foster environments where people share their experiences, language, and common frames of reference in the past or present. This is essential to the process. You extend our analysis from the first rebuttal that tells you that awareness of cultural context is easiest when you create this discourse space for people of all different walks of life to interact and collaborate. New York City's data proves DEI solves for this. NYC Law Department in 2024 found the New York City Law Department is committed to diversity, where 30% of attorneys self-identify as Black, Hispanic, or Asian, 60% of attorneys are women, and over 40% of self-identify as members of the LGBTQ community. 8 of the 23 executive attorneys and division chiefs self-identify as Asian, Black, Hispanic, or 2 or more races, and 14 of the 23 executive attorneys and division chiefs are women. Subpoint B, justice is never guaranteed. Extend Benjamin 19, which tells you an acknowledgement of the shortfalls and implicit bias and systemic discrimination are a precursor to developing an equitable lens. An effective approach must acknowledge shortfalls, explore opportunities to embed justice and equity, and avoid foreclosing possibilities because we're convinced we all have the answers or dismissive of other people's perspectives in the way we fail to recognize. DI is uniquely beneficial here, as DI programs provide important opportunities in criminal defense. As Stand Together, a philanthropic community articulates, partner initiative tackles various criminal justice issues, including overcriminalization and policing of minority communities, lack of effective counsel and due process, overly punitive sentencing, and lack of reentry resources and training for people exiting prison. On to subpoint C, opportunities in criminal defense. Remember, DI programs serve 4 essential functions in criminal defense. 1, making sure clients' legal rights will be compromised. 2, ensuring people with different identities will be represented equally. 3, providing understanding to clients who face intersectional discrimination. And 4, assisting in dismantling systemic bias. Extend our Hernandez card, which tells you DI initiatives create a more conducive environment for attorney-client interactions by creating spaces for attorneys of diverse and relatable backgrounds to be. Also apply our NYC Law Department 24 card, which tells you DI programs have already created these spaces for diversification of the law pool, affecting all levels of the working structure, from entry level to upper management. On to our subpoint B, involvement as opportunity. The biggest impact here in the round is our RAND card, which tells you participation in DEI programs reduces recidivism rates by 43%. This is important as an inability to land a job is a strong predictor for recidivism. Greg Lawrence of San Francisco Living Wage Jobs for All tells you the most important factor in determining recidivism rates is the ability to find employment. If a formerly incarcerated person is unable to find employment after 8 months, there's a 33% chance they'll commit another crime landing with that behind bars. This increases to 50% after 1 year of unemployment and 78% after 3. Extend our DOJ card, which tells you DI programs solve for this by providing access to necessary skills training and education for life. Extend our Correctional Association of New York card, which tells you at the family level, participation in such programs yields a positive effect to further generations in 2 ways. 1, fewer recommitments, and 2, a stronger emphasis on focus on education for children. On a more policy-oriented sense, our DOJ cards tell you such investments in such programs see a 400% return on investment. This trend is not unique to college education. High school equivalency analysis result in similar reductions in recidivism. RAND and Bureau of Justice Assistance found inmates who participated in high school GED programs had 30% lower odds of recidivating than those who had not. Let's move on to our second contention. DI program cuts are the worst option. There are no good alternatives to DI cuts. The political costs of creating, developing, and implementing new programs are exceedingly high, dissuading either side of the political spectrum from adopting such novel stances. Moreover, such programs under new frameworks still feed into perception of a soft on crime posture. This perception is key. It guts the chances of criminal justice reform and forces policymakers to center the conversation around underperforming policies. We're winning that replacement programs are time-consuming and incredibly unlikely to pass in the election year, which creates a double bind for our opponents. Either they lose because DI programming is working now, as the NEG argues, or they lose because the current situation isn't perfect, but there are real program needs and no new programs are on the horizon. That means any risk that DI programs do some good also leads to a negative ballot. You extend our Justin Berman card, which tells you the political capital of a perceived soft crime stature is too high for either side of the political aisle to front, destroying any chance of alternatives to DI programs passing. Let's move on to our opponents onto the affirmative case. On a top level, our evidence is most recent and is best when it comes to all levels of study, so you prefer ours. Remember, on their first contention, the Trojan horse for profit. 1. DI programs are started by those who have an interest in dealing with the history of racism. We extend our Strand 24 card, which is the success stories of DI programs, which tells you that in their efforts in trying to make themselves a better person and getting the training necessary, these effects trickle through the existing infrastructures and prop up other like-minded organizations, providing the same access to benefits these individuals had. 2. Even if you don't buy this, the return on the investment is beneficial for government and citizens, as you extend DOJ, which tells you see a 400% return on investment with DEI programs. 3. Even if you don't buy that narrative, the benefits and opportunities of these programs provide outweigh the costs. You extend Lorenzen, which tells you the ability to land a job placement afterwards is the best predictor for recidivism, and you extend RAND here, which tells you participation in such programs reduces recidivism by 43%. Under second contention regarding to police brutality, discrimination, and mass incarceration. 1. Creating the spaces for people of similar backgrounds and experiences is essential to combating internalized biases that plague the criminal justice system. You extend the core four functions of DEI in criminal defense, which include equal representation, addressing intersectionality, and dismantling systemic bias. 2. The current environment where people of different races, origins, and creeds can all cooperate in the same regulatory environment is a unique benefit of DEI programs. You extend our NYC Law Department 24 card, which tells you DEI programs have already been effective in diversifying legal representation on all levels from entry to upper level management. 3. The alt is simply worse. Willingly giving up these structures leaves the marginalized with no way for inclusion and expression, marginalizing the marginalized. Thank you.
Right. Presenting the affirmative team's second constructive argument for 6 to 8 minutes, Gilfredo Santiago, also known as Red, a mentor in the T.R.U.E program, who wants to continue to give back to the community and those in need.
Good afternoon, esteemed judges, brothers and sisters present. My name is Gilfredo Santiago, and I'll be bringing the affirmative team's second constructive argument. First, I will be advancing a new contention, which is that DEI is discriminatory. Second, I will be reaffirming our main contention stated in our first constructive, being the problem in our criminal justice system begin in the school to prison pipeline, and DEI does nothing to address the root of these disparities. The DEI movement was first developed in the 1960s in the midst of the civil rights movement, as Mr. Thomas stated in his constructive argument. One of the reasons we should de-emphasize the current DEI program was written in the USA Today article from December 20th, 2023 by Jessica Quinn, where she used the term reverse discrimination to describe when a minority is hired in favor of someone else, also known as a priority hire. And the term was likewise used in a New Jersey lawsuit that same year where Shannon Phillips, a Starbucks regional director, claimed that she was fired for just being white. The jury agreed and she was awarded $2.7 million in damages. The whole point of DEI initiative was, as Elon Musk wrote on his social media platform X, we need to end discrimination, not replace it with a different discrimination. Unquote. DEI has become this magical current for big corporations to hide behind, allowing them to say that they are part of the solution when they are often exacerbating the problem. And the United States government is said to be the biggest corporation in the world. Once again, President Biden, the one who pushed for these DEI initiatives himself said, quote, The United States federal government is the largest employer in the world, unquote. By de-emphasizing DEI, we as a nation can focus more on issues like dealing with mental health needs of convicted felons before they are released, rather than making prisons more inclusive. There exists an assumption that the priority hiring of minorities in prosecutor's office and judgeship will lead to a more equitable legal outcome, but the proposed way to accomplish this is by lowering the hiring standards from applicants of a certain race. How is this equal when a less qualified person gets the job simply because of their race? Does that not violate the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits racial or gender discrimination or favoritism? This only transfers the discrimination and bias from one group to another. Prejudice cannot be cured by more prejudice. We need to be raising the standard in which we hire anyone into our criminal justice system, especially in the positions of power where lives are at stake. Yes, prison populations and crime rates are down from 30 years ago, but the demographics have not changed. This said, a highly qualified and experienced prosecutor, one held accountable by oversight, will be in a better position to administer justice fairly rather than a less qualified applicant who seeks to tip the balance application in order to right the wrongs made generations ago. The American Bar Association states, quote, "The prosecutor should seek to protect the innocent and convict the guilty, consider the interests of victims and witnesses, and respect the constitutional and legal rights of all persons, including suspects and defendants," unquote. Just as the Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination based on race in favor of equal protection for all, likewise, all prosecutors must be held to a standard of equality and not seek out special judicial treatment for someone merely because of their race. The main contention in our argument to significantly de-emphasize the current DEI is that they fail to address the root cause of the disparities within the criminal justice system, such as the school-to-prison pipeline. In 2005, the NAACP noted that, quote, "The school-to-prison pipeline is facilitated by several trends in education, most negatively impact students of color," unquote. This includes growing poverty rates and decline in school funding, resegregation of school by race and class, underrepresentation of students of colors in advanced placement courses, and an overrepresentation in special education track. For example, within the United States, there has been a movement to adopt a zero tolerance policy for any and all violations that in the past was just a trip to the principal's office. Such zero tolerance policies only exacerbate the extremes. In 2009, the Justice Policy Institute published case examples of these policies, like when, quote, "A 9-year-old boy that on his way to school found a manicure kit with a 1-inch knife inside. That student got suspended from school." In Louisiana, a 12-year-old boy who had been diagnosed with a hyperactive disorder warned another kid in the lunch line not to eat all the potatoes or I'm going to get you. That student was turned in by the lunch monitor and suspended for 2 days. The principal then referred him to the police, who then charged him with making a terrorist threat. That child sat in jail for 2 weeks awaiting trial. Setting up children of color to fail while shouting out racial bias in white police officers does nothing to fix the problem. Yet we ignore the root causes because fixing them is hard. It is much easier to pay millions of dollars to large corporations, to large firms, to teach sensitivity training to police departments and yell when a district does not have enough black officers or prosecutors. But this is only duct tape on a pipe when the whole pipe is rotten. So let's replace the pipe. Let's demand more from our teachers, administrators, prosecutors, judges by increasing standards and creating incentives and oversight to ensure we are getting the best out of everyone. Does DEI really have our best interests in life? I don't think so. Thank you.
All right, presenting the affirmative team's second rebuttal for 3 to 5 minutes, Joseph Sandone, otherwise known as Joey, who wants to work in public service and pursue higher education.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. My name is Joseph Sandone. I will representing the affirmative team in our second rebuttal. We must address the points made by the negative team. We'll then explain why they fail to emphasize the need within our with DEI within our criminal justice system. Their first contention, opportunities for success. First, I would like them to thank them for highlighting things that aren't DEI. You talk about vocational education. You talk about college. You talk about more schooling. None of that has anything to do with DEI. I want to name one program, one vocational program, one college within our prisons. We agree. Thank you for bringing those statistics. I want you to bring one program that has the title DEI within bringing college to prison. Once again, let me remind you of Michigan's esteemed vocational village program is widely considered the national model. To date, the vocational village boasts an extraordinary 2% recidivism rate, said Chris Gautz, a Michigan Department of Corrections spokesman. You talk about DEIs aren't the worst option. How about better options? How about more specific options as we have named today? I posed the question, what programs, I know that they cited a 2024 study that we will see a increase in productivity in the economy because of these DEI programs. But to date, the incarceration rates, the Sentencing Project reports that U.S. has less than 5% of the world's population, but still holds 25% of the world's prison population. Once again, we ask, aren't the worst option? How about we propose better options? Then we say DEI fosters better environments. Then we ask, where is the prison population fit into these DEI initiatives? Once again, have not named one specific DEI initiative that was focused mainly on prisoners. My rebuttal to all these arguments made today by the negative team is really simple. They all have great intentions, but they produce no measurable outcomes. If these DEI ideals worked in practice within the criminal justice system, why are we not reaping the fruits of their labor? We've heard the statistics today in both teams' arguments, but what the negative team has done is mischaracterize these statistics with the need for DEI, while these statistics clearly prove the failure of the current measures, including the current DEI, and highlight the need for change, as our team has advocated for today. Besides the T.R.U.E program, once again, which has not been acknowledged, so they must agree that it works because as we are a living example. Another example of what can be accomplished without the help of DEI is the First Step Act, signed into law by then President Trump in 2018. This bill was designed to promote rehabilitation, lower recidivism, and reduce excessive sentences in the federal prison system. This is a perfect example of real help that had nothing to do with DEI. This bill does not discriminate. It helps the incarcerated who have been treated unfairly by the criminal justice system. This bill may disproportionately affect minorities that have been treated unjustly by the criminal justice system, but this bill is not mutually exclusive to any population. We need to de-emphasize DEI and put more emphasis on real policy and real change. According to the Department of Justice, this legislation boasts an impressive 13% recidivism rate after 3 years of release, compared to a 45% recidivism rate in the general population. Our second constructive argument bolstered our point that DEI is not working. It is doing more harm than good. DEI is discriminatory, and it has no place in our criminal justice system. The following example highlights just how DEI contradicts itself. Gordon Klein, a UCLA accountant lecturer, dismissed a request to grade Black students more leniently in 2020. The school's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office intervened to have him put on leave and banned from campus. Once we remind you again, any mechanism which contradicts the very purpose it was built for invalidates itself. Reiterating our contention for both our constructive arguments, the school-to-prison pipeline statistics are blatant. Right now in Connecticut, according to a 2023 T.R.U.E education report, 119,000 young people have either dropped out of school or in danger of dropping out of school, and who are, for those aged 18 to 26, unemployed and in many cases unemployable. And according to the National Adult Literacy Agency, high school dropouts are 3.5 times more likely to graduate to be arrested in their lifetime. Imagine if we had legislation Nationwide, attacking the problems in our prison systems at the root, instead of covering them up with one of DEI's duct tape fixes, such as equitable hiring. In 2019, Newkirk reported that DEI programs have become an $8 billion industry. Think of what else we could do with $8 billion. Think of how we can address the school to prison pipeline with $8 billion. This is why our team supports real, obtainable change with resources that already exist. They just need to be reallocated. Improvements such as the First Step Act, the T.R.U.E program, more transitional housing, better mental health care, and expanded vocational training for the incarcerated. It is clear that the criminal justice system is broken, and decades of DEI have done nothing to change that. Thank you.
All right. Presenting the negative team's second rebuttal for 3 to 5 minutes, Ariana Tang, a grad student from Denver, Colorado, majoring in public policy.
Okay, judges, can everyone see and hear me? Okay. So I'm starting now. The most important consideration and distinction that we've drawn throughout this entire speech is the potential of DEI programs, and the neg, as long as they could win on a demonstration of these DEI programs, wins. Problems with past DEI programs is not sufficient to renounce them as a whole. DEI programs are uniquely beneficial for the framework shifts it triggers within the criminal justice system. The way the values of these programs carry over into the post-incarcerated world and the uniqueness behind the bureaucratic processes of such programs that will be transformed post the continuation of DEI programs. Judges, you have to prefer the next framework over the AFS. The AFS framework defines DEI as simply hiring practices, which is true that those hiring practices are simply not enough, but instead DEI must include people who have been historically disenfranchised, which are people in the US who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. This is unrealistic expectation of the program, whose intent is to create an environment conducive in opening dialogue and creating the awareness and opportunities for the historically marginalized to enjoy new opportunities. As such, you turn to the negs, evaluating the potential for benefit of DEI. The role of the ballot of the AF, therefore, is to prove that DEI is an inherently bad paradigm, while the neg has to prove any sort of tangible benefit DEI can lead to. What we mean by hiring practices as opposed to what we're talking about training policies. It looks like implementing vocational, educational, and social service programs specifically carved out for people who are involved in the justice system. Now on to contention one again. Opportunities for success. DI programs are uniquely beneficial for the opportunities they unlock both while in prison and after release. Inside prison, DI programs offer a base layer of communication and understanding between prisoners and the criminal justice system. It increases standards among all actors in the criminal justice system, as the AF highlights, which are judges, prosecutors, and correctional officers, and it enfranchises people being prosecuted, jailed, and punished beyond what the law says, and it makes them true stakeholders in their own defense and their experience while incarcerated. Again, involvement translates to opportunity. The AF has discussed programs such as the First Step Act, and also a program in Michigan that does not explicitly say DEI, but they include specific. They're made specifically for people who are justice involved, and that counts as like a program of DEI, which is what we've been saying throughout this entire round. And again, extend our RAND evidence saying that people who participate in any kind of educational program while incarcerated are up to 43% less likely to reoffend. And our ultimate goal throughout this entire round to argue for criminal justice reform is to keep people out of jails, keep people out of prisons, and keep people out of the system, which is what both teams want. The First Step Act that the AF discusses is in fact an example of a DEI program because it centers the success of people who have been historically denied humanity and services throughout the history of the U.S. And again, extend our Benjamin card, which tells you that acknowledgement of shortfalls and implicit bias and systematic discrimination are precursor to developing equitable lenses. The NEG provides you a starting point for addressing the current issues and advances in criminal justice reform, whereas the Act doesn't provide what kind of mechanism they can add into adding a voice for people who are involved in the justice system into their own defense. and experience. And then also opportunities in criminal defense. Again, like the impact of our opportunities in criminal defense argument is that this understanding among actors in the criminal defense system, such as public defenders, private attorneys, and prosecutors, ensures due process that is demanded. And then on to contention 2, DEI program cuts are the worst option. There are no good alternatives to DEI cuts, as we said, and an extension on the soft on crime argument is that, again, like we said, in an election year, such as 1972 when Nixon Nixon won 49 states over McGovern because he represented his opponent as soft on crime. In this election year as well, Biden is being represented as extremely soft on crime, allowing people who are portrayed as like former prisoners from other countries coming to our country. This is actually working to create fear amongst people and a demand for increasing funding in prisons in the United States, which is what we want to avoid. And now onto the affirmative case. Please pause here for a moment to compare the authorities used in this round. The negative sources are largely from 2023 and 2024, using statistics from last month on the lasting legacy of deleterious impacts of cuts to DI programs nationwide. And yeah.
All right, now both teams will present closing remarks for 90 seconds, beginning with the affirmative team from the T.R.U.E unit, Ishkar Howard.
I would first like to give thanks to the judges and respected opponents. Tonight, what you witnessed by the affirmative team were clear and concise arguments that heavily outweighed any and every claim that the negative team presented. It is without a doubt that any claims that DEI has that our current or future solutions are non-existent. We have given evidence that the cycle of mass incarceration begins in schools, planting seeds of self-hate into the minds of inner city children that they are thugs and criminals, creating false narratives in their communities and causing the same authorities assigned to serve and protect them to treat them with hostility and brutal force. Once a crime is committed, instead of rehabilitation, they lock them into environments that breed violence, where people develop antisocial defense mechanisms. They then return back to their communities worse than when they came, and over 70% of them recidivate. We don't need DEI promises. We need results. The real solution to the criminal justice reform is to allocate the $8 billion DEI dollars to after-school programs and higher teacher pay. We need transparency and accountability with police. We need vocational training and real trauma-based mental health care in our prisons. We need funding to get results like the T.R.U.E program so people can receive not only real programming, but real rehabilitation as well. We listen to people say excuses like there are plans to, it takes time, in other words, later. And later has always meant wait. And in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, wait has always meant never.
Right. All right, we will now hear the negative team's closing remarks from NYU's Elena Lee for 90 seconds.
Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna start my speech. So the NEC is winning on this round because the NEC is the only side that provide you with mechanism to solve all the problems that it mentioned. So here's go back to our arguments. First, DEI are key to criminal defense laws, preventing more people to get into the prison in the first place. They never answer it with evidence against it, so they conceded with it, which means less incarceration are going to happen. This is our impact. And second, DEI programs reduce recidivism by 43%, which is how we prevent more people from going back to the prison with terrible condition at the first place. They never have a contrary evidence to go against it, which means they also conceded. And also they say multiple times that we need to spend the monies on other stuff, but they are believing that the same governments that they are claiming to not doing some DEI programs properly are going to use those extra monies on the other programs. This is not what's gonna happen, which means if the extra fundings from the DEI is not going to anywhere that they mentioned, they cannot prove it, they cannot prove where and when are those new programs are going to happen, which means the only place those funding are going to go is probably military spending, which means they solve nothing. This is why we need the DEI as the only mechanism, and the only thing we need to do is to keep the only mechanism that we have and improve it.
Yeah. All right, so that's the debate portion of this. Right now, the judges will tally their scores. They'll send them over to the chief judge via email, and he will reach out when he has those scores. In the interim, between now and the minutes it takes to, or multiple minutes it takes to receive that, we want to first, we have a but there were many people involved in making this happen that went above and beyond to make this debate happen. There's one person we wanted to recognize who have worked, way beyond what was asked of him in this role, and that's Counselor Patel.
Thank you. So, I just want to say real quick, gentlemen, and, and thank you for coming. It was a wonderful experience. Thank you for coming as well for the esteemed judges. I want to also say thank you to Captain Quinn, Lieutenant Vassar, Lieutenant Owens, the counselors, the staff, Warden Rees, the administration for providing this opportunity for these gentlemen. I'm very proud of them, and thank you again.
All right, and then following that, we just open the floor. If there's anyone from NYU or anyone from the team that wants to give some remarks, you can come up.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that. I just want to thank everybody. Thank you. Appreciate this. Appreciate everybody that's judges came out. Also want to acknowledge Brittany, huge help, instrumental part of making this happen. Absolutely want to thank our coaches, Sam and Jody, for showing up, extra practices, as well as Brittany, and showing us what debate is all about. As a lot of the guys here know, I spoke about it a bunch of times. Just this experience alone has opened me not only to opportunities, just to another way of thinking. And we joke about it. Like now I'm finding stuff around the unit to debate. Like it's crazy. Like, and I'm almost taking on things that I shouldn't be. But regardless, learning how to communicate properly was the biggest thing that I took from the debate team. And the amount of like very, very important people that started in debate or have their roots in debate is crazy. So I know I hope everybody here got something out of it. And thanks again. Thank you, everybody. Please, Joe. One more thing. I forgot. Love you too, bro. I want to give a huge, huge special shout out to my mentor, my brother, James Pender. We wouldn't have been able to do it without you. Those late nights, like all the same reasons why. Like he spent time and time again. He had prepared an entire debate for a mock debate on a negative team's case by himself to go against us. And he debated all 6 of us or all 5 of us by himself. And he took the time to do that. Thank you.
I also want to acknowledge someone on the team who didn't have a speaking role, and that was our alternate, Robert Perry, who trained every week with the team, and who did help prepare. So I don't know. Oh, well, he's got other things to do. But he was instrumental, and so I just wanted to take the time to recognize him. Is there anyone else from your team about this experience that you all? You don't feel pressured.
First and foremost, thank you for this experience. I learned so much about like politics and DEI, and I think like every time they spoke like political language, it was like a needle into my arm because the lives of the young men that I help mentor, I be thinking about like how many roadblocks and how much stuff is against us from day one. And I urge all y'all to take the information that we've been gathering and we all start building on it. Who knows, man? Maybe we need to start writing policies because it's not right, right? We need to really start thinking outside the box and get into that world ourselves, man. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate you, man. Yeah, man. I love y'all guys, man.
We'd like to thank Daniels, Brittany, Jordy Nelson. We had a stack of papers. I think it's like 10,000 pages that we had to read through. The administration from Warden Reese, Captain Quinn, Lieutenant Vassar, Lieutenant Owens, Pacheco, all of our counselors. It was a beautiful experience. For me in the beginning, I didn't want to do it. But once I sat down in the first meeting and I heard Nelson tell us everything about it, I was in. Once late nights, 3 o'clock in the morning, I was coming out and working on this. This is something that for the first time here at Cheshire Correctional Institution, it's the first time we get to do something like this, where we are able to welcome a team from NYU and debate them. It was an honor for me. And this experience will go with me for the rest of my life. And it's something that once I'm released from here, I'm gonna continue. You guys are a part of my family now, so I appreciate everybody for the opportunity.
My team basically covered it all. I would thank you guys again. You guys probably tired of thanking, but thank you guys again. Me, I'm just my leg hurt. That's why it's like that. But my ankle hurt. But I still came. I injured myself like 4 days before the debate. And I kept like, man, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it. They're like, man, your leg hurt, not your mouth. So I'm still here. It was a good experience for me, and I want to thank you guys actually for coming out from the bottom of my heart. Jody and Sam and Brittany, all them 2 days we're there, and we going on for like 2 hours. It's really been something for me, and it's opened my eyes. And Joey, my teammate, when we first got on the team, I told him, I said, after the first one, I don't think I can do this. Like, this is not for me. And he said, why not? And I didn't really have a good response. But now, now that I have did this and I had the opportunity, I'm glad that I took it and I ran with it. I want to thank you guys once again. And that's it.
Well, I definitely want to start by saying thank you everyone for coming. I didn't know there'd be this many people out here, so it's kind of crazy. Louder? Louder? Okay. Yeah, I was just complaining that they weren't loud enough when they were talking, and now I'm speaking super low too. So that's crazy. One thing I do want to say is that there's true power in like advocating for yourself, finding your voice, constructing arguments, being able to communicate your ideas with different people, right? And even though this may seem like, oh, it's just a competition, they're just debating NYU, shout out to NYU for pulling up too. I think there's something much more special and important going on here, right? Often when you're behind these walls or in those cages, in those cells, like it feels like the world has like forgotten about you, thoughts in your own head, no one cares about that. You're unable to, reach out to loved ones and I think as the years go on, you become further and further disconnected from the people that you love and the world that you remember. But what you're seeing happen here, right, is an ability to connect, right, with people who are on the outside, right, ability to connect with your own ideas, right, and then translate those into, as Joey and Ish were saying, like actual policy, right? Just because we're in this situation now currently, right, like that isn't going to determine your entire existence. Right? And all the voices that are out there that's saying that is indeed the case, those are the minority, man. Right? Like, there's more people out there that believe in y'all, that want to see y'all win, right? That want to collaborate, that want to bring programs on the inside, that want to see you maximize your potential. But that fight's got to come from us, man. Like, even though it's only like 5 or 6 debaters up here, like I'm sure all the energy, right, every day that y'all talk to each other, like that's what you're seeing live, right? But you could do that on the outside too, bro. When we all get out of here, right? Or even if it's not you, it's someone that you love, someone that you interact with. You gotta send them on the outside with that same message, man. That same like charisma, that same all that character that you just seen here on full display. We all got that, bro. Like the more we do that, the more we build each other, be positive, be constructive, right? Communicate, articulate ourselves in a fashion that's intelligible, right? That's gonna change the world, bro. So just wanna really emphasize that. Like I started in the same place as y'all, dog. When I was a kid, like it's just saying, foster care, group home, juvie, the same exact thing, bro. And like you run into the right people that care about you, you start caring about yourself, stop doing dumb shit, man. Start really believing in who you are. You could change your life and you change other people's lives too. So just encouraging y'all to do that, but it all starts within your mind. Man. So this is one event, but like should be life changing, man, and really speak to that. Appreciate y'all.
So I want to thank everyone for being like our audience. Of course, this is like by far like the biggest audience like all of us have like ever debated. This is Hyatt's first debate. So, um, and I want to thank, of course, the National Prison Debate League for just creating this opportunity. Like any activity that, you know, like humanizes people who are incarcerated is just so important. And I think that, you know, there's just so little humanity and so much denied when you're in prison. And it's just important to have programs like this, especially debate where it's a lot of it is off the dome, off your own dome, where you can express your own ideas and like craft and synthesize on your own. And that's like what everyone should have, even if they are incarcerated. So I think that's the most important thing, and I think that we're really happy that we got to participate in NPDL. And thank you so much for debating with us.
Hey, y'all, a lot of people have been thanked so far tonight. I just want to add one group. You all are an incredible and wonderful and amazing audience. Thank you so much for giving some value to intellectual combat by coming here tonight and being part of this. Now, y'all were here, so you don't need me to explain the next part, but I'm gonna say it anyway. When you hear that grandfather talking, you know words have power. There's no denying that or a question, but I was excited when everyone started talking about making policies here. Please remember that any idea, anywhere, starts with one person persuading another that they have a good idea for change. Any of y'all can do that tomorrow, the next day. I'm excited to watch y'all watch policies, and thank you so much for honoring us by allowing us to come here. Amazing debate, y'all. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh, So, yeah. So the word that comes to me as I stand here is solidarity, and I'm not just talking about with my brothers in here, but everybody that came in here. Because for me, I don't define family as the one that you've been assigned, but the one that joined the journey along the way. Education for me at this point, I've gotten to a point where it's a wonderful thing for education's sake. But I do understand that education is important because it opens doors. It's a mechanism of freedom, incitement. I was convinced to get my GED while I was in prison, and I did. Similarly, I was convinced to get my associates in prison, and currently I'm enrolled in the BLS program. Hopefully, I should be getting my degree shortly. But it took an old school cat in prison that I respected to pull me aside and said, "This is not for you. I'm going to support you." So I had support, and I decided to change my life. What they said was important concerning the role that prisoners play in society. We'll find that a lot of case law is generated from prison, and a lot of civil rights movement and people that are fighting for justice, they cite case law, meaning that you and I generate these things, and we're important. I'm happy that everybody came. I'm happy for the experience. You might not know it, but I'm nervous in front of crowds, and I really didn't want to do this thing because I would have to stand in front of a crowd, but I had to think about my mentees, and I had to think about pushing through that like I encourage them to do every day. And if I don't meet the challenge that I'm afraid to meet, then what right do I have for encouraging them to do the same thing and to push past their fears every day? So I appreciate everybody for the opportunity, appreciate you coming, and just want to say thank you again for the experience.
How are we doing on scores?
I'm still waiting on one ballot.
Okay, all right.
All right,
Daniel,
so it was
you
a
wanna,
close, exciting debate. Yeah, why don't we have Daniel give some final words?
Daniel can, or any judges who have submitted their ballot, if you wanna provide some comments, go ahead.
I'd prefer to let one of the judges give a little analysis and weigh in. You guys hear from me plenty, and a lot of the themes have been touched on. So I'd prefer if one of the judges has some time to share some remarks with the team.
I just got the final ballot, so I guess I'll go, and then the other judges could go. So I thought this was an incredible experience, and I really loved being a part of it. To hear, you incarcerated intellectuals be able to represent like a high level of engagement with the different arguments that are being presented is incredibly important, because it allows us to see not only just the ability to refute things, but then also how doing the research, taking that information you talk about, and then being able to internalize it and then respond to other people really, shows how good you are at representing yourselves, and how these skills are going to be able to go, beyond there. And for NYU, for you to be able to come and be able to engage in a slightly different format, and I guess some of you for your first time, like, you also did incredibly well in being able to present your side and framing the ballot. What I really liked from the affirmative side was the mention of like how we should be able to like get at the root of problems, opposed to just putting band-aids on it, and what those potential roots might be and what alternatives could potentially exist, as well as bringing in a little bit of your own personal experiences, being like, the T.R.U.E program shows how there are other solutions and stuff like that. And I thought that was really useful. And from the negative side, I really enjoyed the way in which you made use of your evidence. You talked about the recency, and you consistently ended up trying to frame the ballot in order to establish how we should approach judging this debate. So it was a very close debate. Every judge scored it within a pretty, close margin of one another. However, it does come out to be a 4-0 decision for the affirmative from the T.R.U.E program. So congratulations. So great job. Great job. Yeah, so I mean, I spoke for a little bit. I think that really, like, in the end, the affirmative was able to win that there are other ways to get at the problem that might be better. And so even if DAI might have some benefits, that the money could be spent better elsewhere.
Right, there's, no additional comments, from any of the judges. I think that's a wrap for our debate today. We do have a debate in Ohio, in 2 weeks, national debate league, so we'll look out for that.
We should have saved who won till the end. That way, once it's